I'm Danny, and this is Asher. We're two Kiwis who, after 5 years living in London, decided to head home the slow way. We bought a 36-foot sailing boat, Bacchus, built a little rowing and sailing dinghy, Pi Waka Waka, and headed towards the horizon. These are our adventures.
I think I do have the skills to pull this off and get us back to New Zealand safely, and I think the boat is capable. There's a few little modifications that I want to do to the boat, a few extra things that we want to add, and heaps of learning points from that trip. So yeah, we're cracking on, but it definitely was probably the lowest point of the trip so far, I'd say. So we've been on Bacchus for the last couple of days, just doing some jobs, getting everything back in order after our big passage from Lisbon. But we've hired a car today and we're off to explore Lanzarote, which is a pretty interesting looking island. It's kind of like the surface of Mars. Shush Google. It's these big volcanic peaks, and there's no vegetation, and it's all kind of reddy brown. It's pretty surreal actually. So this is a bay on the south end of Lanzarote, and we're thinking about coming and anchoring here. There's not that many places you can anchor in the Canaries. The coast is mostly quite exposed, but this is meant to be a good spot. So we figured, seeing as we've got the car, we'll swing past and have a look at it and decide whether it's somewhere we want to come. It looks quite nice to me. It's flat. A couple of boats out there that have parked up.
Looks like there's some...
Should we walk up to the top of that hill?
This island, I don't know if you can see it in the background, it's called Ventura. I just like to call it Future Island, but it's because I can't pronounce it very well. Woohoo!
This landscape is like Morocco or Iran or somewhere. It's a desert. You can't imagine what the first people who lived here must have done to grow food and survive. It's just completely barren. There's nothing green.
Far out.
As a rugged landscape. But this landscape is just so rugged. It's like these rocks that just look razor sharp, and they're just everywhere. Like, you wouldn't be able to move around on foot off the road. You'd break your ankle or something.
God knows how long it took them to build this road.
I don't even know how you'd put the road in. You'd have to come through with like a tank or something. €10 each to visit this national park. We're just in the queue with the other cars. Not entirely sure what we've paid for yet, but hopefully
Our lunch money gone.
Hopefully it's something good. Turns out we've paid €10 for a bus ride.
I was just saying how I don't want to go on a tour. We've ended up on a tour bus.
We've ended up on a tour bus. Drive to the national park, get stuck on a bus.
Erzählt. Zwischen 9 und 10 Uhr abends öffnete sich mit einem Male in der Nähe von Timanfaya, nur 2 Meilen von Jaiza, die Erde.
Get a load of the soundtrack that we're listening to. This is volcano-themed music.
So after that thrilling tour bus experience, we jumped back in our own wheels to continue exploring the island and find some lunch.
How you feeling, Danny?
I think we might have overordered. For our last stop of the day, we visited the Mirador del Rio at the very top of the island, looking over the most northern of the Canary Islands, La Graciosa. Well, that's not the barrier to lean on here.
No.
What a view! Designed by the island's famous Caesar Manrique, the architecture and epic view made it a perfect spot for us to grab a caffeine hit before heading back to Bacchus.
It's Sunday and we're going to leave the marina here at Arrecife on Lanzarote, and we're going to head to an anchorage that we saw yesterday when we were out exploring in the car. So we're currently here at Arrecife and we're going to head off. We're going to go down the coast here and we're going to go and anchor off Playa Blanca down in this south end of the island. It's bloody windy. I don't know if you can hear it outside, but this is the wind map, and as you'd guess, the red colours equal lots of wind.
Where are we on this?
So we're up here where these little boats are.
Yeah,
right in the middle
of the red.
The red. Where we're going to end up eventually is Tenerife over here, where it's actually a little bit quieter. But on this side here, the wind just howls down. So the challenge today is going to be getting out of our marina berth, which you wouldn't think would be the tricky part of the day, but it's blowing 30 knots out there and the fairway isn't very big, so there's not a huge amount of room to manoeuvre Bacchus, and when the wind's blowing like that, the boat can be quite hard to control, especially when you're moving slowly. So that's our challenge for today, is get the boat out of the marina without damaging it or anyone else's boat. And if we do damage, we have insurance. So yeah, hooray for that.
We waited for a slight drop in the wind, recruited some help from a neighbouring yachty, slipped lines and carried out an Austin Powers style umpteen point turn to get us out of the marina and off towards the south of the island to a hopefully sheltered anchorage.
This is an awful place. It has blown between 20 and 40 knots the entire time we've been here. We've been here for a week on Lanzarote, and yeah, we've had 20 to 40 knots the whole time. We're currently in the most sheltered anchorage on the island, and we've just had a gust of 42 knots go through. The boat is just getting covered in sand and this brown dust that blows off the mainland. See everybody kicking around on their moorings, and my nerves are just getting really torn up by it, to be honest. It's just been day after day after day of high wind. So yeah, Lanzarote, do not recommend it. Not a nice place. Rockner anchor, which is a good bit of New Zealand kit, and it's holding us very well. Very pleased with it. Oh, I wouldn't be happy being here with anything less.
Today we're leaving the very windy Isle of Lanzarote. We've got about 130 nautical miles to Tenerife, so it's pretty windy out there. It's about 20 to 30 knots. With some pretty big swell, about 2-3 metres of swell, but it should be the worst of it at the moment, and as we go through the next 24 hours things should calm down a little, but it's pretty exciting out there. With our autopilot once again not being able to handle the swell and the wind, we had to hand steer the full sail to Tenerife, which was pretty tiring. We began to see the lights of Santa Cruz as the sun rose and were lucky enough to be greeted by a pod of pilot whales. You'll have to look closely to spot them. The landscape of Tenerife was dramatically different to what we had left behind at Lanzarote, with plenty of green up on the hills begging to be explored. We made our way into Marina Santa Cruz, where with our extensive list of repairs and upgrades to Bacchus, we would spend the next 3.5 weeks. But first we needed to check out the island.
What are we up to today, Asha?
We are off exploring Tenerife, which is the largest of the Canary Islands, and we're over on the north coast at the moment. It's pretty rugged and wild. There's a big sea running. And that's the ocean that we're going to head out and cross in a few weeks' time. That's the Atlantic. Straight up.
Straight up. It's a fair bit of elevation on today's walk, I'm afraid. Might need a few breaks.
Woohoo! Look at that view.
After our time exploring the completely barren landscape of Lanzarote, we were surprised to learn that despite its small size, the Canary Island archipelago is one of the most biodiverse of the temperate regions of the world, with about 2,000 different kinds of plants. It has been said that the Canary Islands are to botany what the Galapagos Islands are to zoology.
What do you got there, Asha?
Look at these plants. This one's like it looks like a big pancake. It's all flat, but these are all like little individual leaves that are all, see, just folded in on each other. It's all sort of soft. It's like a big rosette.
Cool.
Yeah. This, I think, is a dragon tree.
It's pretty cool.
We don't know much about them, but they look really cool, really otherworldly. The plants here are just crazy. We're up near the top of Tenerife now. See that really jagged coast behind us, stretching down, and the North Atlantic out that way. Where are you rushing off to this morning, Danny?
I'm going for a dive. Third day of my dive course, which is pretty cool.
Danny's been doing her PADI open water ticket while we've been here in Tenerife. I am going to be doing some work for Ashurst. Somebody has to make the bacon while the others are off having fun.
See you later.
Bye.
Last day of my diving course today. 2 dives, 80 metres, beautiful day, sun shining, hopefully there's lots of fishies. I really want to see a stingray. Yesterday I saw an octopus and I saw lots of fish, but yep, excited. Here we go. Where the magic happens. Scuba banana. Good morning! So we're about to go off for our last dive. This is Lena. Hello! And this is Max. And this is all of our gear. We're going to go set up our gear, put our tanks on, and go for a swim, see some fish.
So we've come for a drive up
Teide National Park.
Teide National Park in Tenerife. So in the middle of Tenerife there's actually the tallest mountain in Spain, and it's over here poking out of the clouds. It's pretty spectacular. You can see it over there. So we're at about 1,800 metres at the moment, and I think Teide is like 3,700 metres or something.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's pretty amazing. Like Tenerife's not a big island, and then you've got this peak that's, you know, almost 4,000 meters in the middle. It's pretty spectacular. So this drive up Tenerife just gets better and better. We've stopped at another lookout, and you can see Teide behind us over there poking its head out. But it's spectacular. You're way above the clouds. We can see La Palma, which is another of the Canary Islands, out over behind us on the horizon. I think we're about 2,000 meters up now, so we're above the tree line.
You can feel it. You can feel the altitude.
Yeah, it's so cool because we're so close to the coast, you know, like it's taken us what, like 40 minutes driving maybe to get here from the boat.
Yeah.
Like the boat's just down, just below those clouds on the coast there. And yet here we are up in what feels like a real alpine environment. It's super cool.
It's really cool. We're on the moon.
Look at that landscape. Isn't it amazing?
It's so cool.
After driving through Teide National Park, we decided to visit the small mountain village of Masca. We had been warned the road to get there was pretty gnarly, which it was, but it was a great place to watch the sunset and finish touring before we were back to boat jobs.
We're down to the pointy end of boat preparations. What's on the list today, Asha?
Today I'm working on attaching our new wind vane self-steering system. So I don't know if you remember in the last video I was complaining about the autopilot not working very well. I've decided to fit a mechanical version to be a backup to our electrical hydraulic version. So this is the rudder that goes with it. This is going to be a backup rudder for Bacchus, and it's going to hang off the back of the boat on some quite fancy framework which is down in this box. I don't know if you can see, there's some struts and some legs, and there's a big fancy drive unit down there, but basically this whole device is called a hydrovane, and it uses the wind to decide where it's going to steer the boat. So they're quite famous, they're quite well known, they're quite expensive, but I think it's going to be a big improvement to Bacchus. So today I'm trying to shape these timber pads which are going to be the mounting points for the hydrovane going onto the boat. So these are the rough cuts, and I'm going to be working on those with some sandpaper and a plane. What's this, Danny?
Got my very first ever power tool. It's an electric polisher, because I tried to do it with my arm and I didn't get very far.
Tried to do what? What were you doing?
The entire hull of the boat.
Right.
So there's quite a lot of boat to polish. So this little puppy is going to do the job for me. Woohoo.
So this here is called the Traveller. It's the main Traveller, and what it does is it allows us to move the sheeting point for the mainsail across the boat here. It's got this little car that moves across this rail, and that's where the main sheet is attached. Now, Bacchus's old owners, bless them, used a stainless steel shackle on an aluminium fitting, and you can see what that's done to that aluminium. It's just eaten it away, and there's not much left. And my concern has always been that this fitting is going to fail and snap, and then we'll have a main sail that's no longer attached. It's not good. Now, unfortunately, this model of Traveller is not made anymore. The company that made it has gone out of business, and because this Traveller is made of aluminium with little stainless screws, everything's seized together, and you can't actually get it undone to get the car off to go and just get an engineering shop to make a new toggle. So unfortunately, the cheapest and easiest option is just to buy a completely new Traveller, which is what we've done. So as part of our extensive list of upgrades here in the Canaries, Bacchus is getting a brand new Traveller. What's your job today, Danny?
Well, I am changing the cars over on the main sail, so we've had a bit of problem with our cars jamming. Which, this is the old car. And
Very simple little plastic jobby.
yeah, that gets wrapped around by this webbing through the hole on the sail, so there's a number of them, and then that slides up and down the mast, and these have been getting jammed. So we've got some nice big new cars with wheels on them, and I've just attached it to the webbing here, and now I'm going to do the tricky task of reattaching this back to the sail, which involves a bit of sewing out in the wind up on deck, but that'll be attached nice and tightly, and then we'll lift the sail up and down. So we've got 3 of these new ones that I'm going to put on today.
So we've got the riggers in at the moment. It's a little bit like having the plumbers round to your house to fix up some things that aren't working so well. So they've actually disconnected the backstays now. Here, these are normally what hold the mast up. The mast is currently being held up by some rope and a halyard. And the guys have been up the mast. They've taken the head off the mast at the top there, and they've replaced 4 sheaves. And they're currently replacing the roller furler at the front of the boat because it hasn't been working properly. It's been jamming. So yeah, they're going to retune the rig for us, get the mast standing nice and straight, and fit a new forestay and a new roller furler as well. So yeah, it's all getting us ready for the Atlantic.
So today my job has been to service the winches. One of our winches was a bit broken and wouldn't turn the other way. So what that involves is pulling the whole thing apart and just cleaning everything off with like a white spirit. And then what we're doing is we're replacing the pawl and the springs that sit inside the winch. So that is what makes it click one way and not be able to click the other way. So we're replacing the pawls because they've never been replaced, but the springs you're supposed to service every year. But first everything needs to come off, get cleaned, get put back together, degreased, and then yeah, you stack it all back up to itself. It's not quite fitting, there we go.
Nice.
Another winch done.
Busy day today with the little rental car. We've been to 3 supermarkets to get our last European shop in. Food's so cheap here, and we know it's going to be expensive once we hit the Caribbean, so we've got everything. And then we've also been looking for wood and stainless steel for installing the wind vane, and a few tools that I need.
We went to the gas depot, refinery, whatever that's called.
Yeah, filled up our gas cylinder, which for the princely sum of €6.70, I think. It normally cost about €30 when we were in Europe, 20 or 30 euros. So £6.50 for the same amount of gas here in the Canaries. Yeah, busy day.
Job day.
Yeah.
Really good.
This is the reality of leaving Europe, when you know that all this fantastic food that you love, that you've been eating for the last 5 years, is not going to be available anymore. And it's so cheap here. You go a little bit mad. So this is just a little bit of a look around Bacchus at the moment. There is trays and trays and boxes and boxes and boxes of food. How much chocolate have we got, Danny?
56 blocks.
56 blocks of chocolate is what we have.
But we don't want to run out.
And coming out into the cockpit, I know it's dark, you can't really see, but there's about 40 odd litres of milk, many dozen beers, mixers, we've got sacks of onions, trays of eggs, half a pallet of pasta. We are loaded to the absolute gunnels. There we've got trays of chopped tomatoes, chopped mushrooms, and other essentials stacked up in different cupboards. We've got several litres of UHT cream, which we love in our coffee. So we are very heavily loaded, so we're not going to starve on this crossing. So we're
just reinforcing the back of the boat ready for the wind vane. So this is just a piece of ply that we've cut to the shape of the inside of the transom of Bacchus, and we're just mixing up some epoxy and we're going to stick it into place. So it's just going to add another centimetre of thickness to the fiberglass that's already at the back of the boat, and then we're going to bolt the wind vane through there. So this will just add some strength to the whole assembly.
Spread her on. Oh yeah.
Smooth stroke.
Poking stick at some point. That poking stick is
Sure,
just there.
I'll poke you with it.
Thank you, that'd be
You know
lovely.
where it is. It's pretty quiet down there, isn't it, Alvin?
Gotta try and get both arms in, I think.
Do the
So
work.
here I am lying on my back in the bottom of Bacchus, and if I take the camera through this little hole where I've been working, you might be able to see there, that's our piece of plywood which is now wedged in place with a stick. There's the rest of Bacchus's steering gear and our small stash of corn chips which live at the back of the boat because they're lightweight. So we're going to let that epoxy go off and then we'll start mounting this hydrovane. And I will wiggle my way out of this little spot. Whew. We're just fitting the wind vane on the back of Bacchus and it's been a bit of a mish, but we're getting there. Here's Ben holding the semi-finished product, doesn't have the sail on it yet.
This is my mate Steve.
This is Steve, the wind
solid
vane.
bloke.
It's some really cool engineering. When you look at the pieces inside, it's all mechanical, there's no computer, and it's just a very clever, well-designed little bit of kit. And we're going to be fitting it onto the back of Bacchus.
What are we doing, Asha?
We are busy installing this wind vane. It's been a big job, but it's been fantastic having Ben here for a third pair of hands to help make it all happen. And a little bit of muscle to move the heavy bits and pieces. But we're just about to stick it on the back of the boat for the first time and see if it all fits, which is exciting and nerve-wracking all at once.
Cool, let's do it.
What you been doing, Danny?
I just made a hammock for all of our onions.
Another hammock
Yes.
to go with this hammock.
Yeah, well this one will fill up tomorrow, full of fresh produce, but we needed somewhere for all of our onions and garlic and cabbages.
Woo.
So they're all going there.
Nice. We are getting offshore ready. And what's been happening out here, Ben?
Just working on the wind vane.
Working on the wind vane. We're about to cut holes in the boat, which everybody knows is my second favourite pastime. So we've got the wind vane here, and we've been using this PVC pipe as a dummy shaft, and we've now marked down here on the transom where that bracket's going to go. So the next step is to drill some holes and start fitting the thing, which is always the scary bit because now it's the point of no return. Fingers crossed.
Put that about there.
Cool. Okay, ready?
Yep.
The boys worked into the night, and after many hours of work, our hydrovane Florence was installed. With Florence installed, all we had left to do was pick up some Christmas steaks from the butcher and fill our hammocks with fresh fruit. Oh, and deal with immigration, which was a drama we probably don't want to advertise on YouTube.
Join us on our next episode as we leave the Canary Islands in our wake and set sail across the Atlantic on Bacchus's biggest adventure yet.